So now that all three of the Spider-Man DLCs have come out, I wanted to talk a little bit about if they were worth the value or if you should even buy them. Now they're only around $20 to $25, so it's not really that much of an asking price, but considering you could get the game for $30 to $40 this, holiday season, that is a considerable price if you think about, what you're going to get for it. So my main problem with the DLCs is that there isn't much content here, and most of the content is kind of locked, or at least some of the content is locked behind padded content. And by that I mean a lot of the content is just doing more crimes and finishing off the districts. So with each DLC you get around 2 suits just for completing the story, usually around 1 suit for starting the story and 1 suit for finishing the story, and then of course the 3rd suit is locked behind pretty much finishing up all the districts. Now this is just going to be crimes and doing screwball challenges, which is pretty similar to the main game. How you're doing challenges around the city for the guy, I forgot what his name is, but I finished all those in the main story. Got gold on each one. I thought it was really fun. I think it was Taskmaster, his name was. But later on in these DLCs, I just didn't really feel motivated to do these challenges, and mainly because you're not really getting any new powers in any of these DLCs. You're not really grinding for those points to add more powers or unlock costumes for specific powers. So you're really just completing these to get that 1 suit, or if you're an achievement hunter, and that's really the problem, right? There isn't really any desire to complete these grindy, padded challenges. Most of the story content in all these DLCs is actually quite good, but again, my main concern is that they kind of locked behind a 3rd suit behind, this content that is so grindy. I would rather have preferred it that all 3 of these DLCs give you all 3 suits for just completing the storyline and not requiring you to do these grindy tasks that take quite a bit of time that you really pretty much did in the main game already. And most people, I'm assuming, are going to be kind of content with the main game doing that, not necessarily wanting to do the same kind of tasks and such throughout the city that are mainly a repeat from the main game's content. So if we could have gotten all 3 suits for doing the main story, that would have been really good. The main stories in each one of these segments is pretty short and definitely does feel extra. They don't hold the same sort of gravity or have the same sort of villains that the main story has, or even really progress too much on the Spider-Man's character. Now we do see some developments with other characters like Yuri and a bit with Black Cat, but they still feel extraneous to me. They don't really feel that important to Spider-Man's story. They're just kind of developing those characters that didn't really get to tell their full story in the main game. But again, they do feel extra and not necessarily up to the same kind of quality in cinematic presentation that we saw in the main game with so many cutscenes and stuff like that. So the story, it is good, but it does feel extra and not necessarily needed in my opinion. And the grinding and stuff like that to get the costumes is definitely a letdown, considering that some of the best costumes, like the Spider-Man Into the Verse costume and a couple of other costumes, are locked behind finishing all the districts. So if they could have added more powers or more incentives to do this grindy content, not just to unlock the third costume, maybe some of those progression elements, like if you get those powers, maybe 1 power every DLC, or maybe just a couple to kind of freshen up the experience while you're doing these challenges, I think that could have definitely helped, or just reduced how many you needed to do, or maybe even kind of changed the mechanics of these challenges a little bit more. Now with screwball challenges, you do get some different mechanics, so you can see me doing one right here, in that you're taking pictures and kind of trying to hit the marker, kind of like a quick time event, as you can see right there. But overall, it's just kind of fighting guys and doing the same thing you've always been doing, so nothing really that new. Not to mention, Screwball is definitely kind of annoying and just kind of pissed me off every time I heard her voice. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much my wrap up of the Spider-Man DLCs. Now, are they fun to play? I would say yes, they are fun to play. The storylines are good, the writing is good, the jokes are good, but they do feel extra, not necessarily necessary or worth the money in my opinion. The suits are cool, but keep in mind that a lot of the coolest suits are going to be locked behind tons of grinding. So if you don't like grinding for these coolest suits, maybe don't buy this DLC. Now, if you want to just get some of the suits and finish the stories, and you might miss some of the suits, due to not being able to grind out or wanting to grind out for them, then I would recommend getting the DLCs if that's something you're into. For me, I finished all of them, but definitely missed out on those suits because I didn't really feel like completing all the districts and stuff like that. And I definitely was kind of let down a little bit by how they kind of stretched out the content with these DLCs and, you know, made it such a grindy experience to get the coolest suits. It's kind of like an incentive to keep playing just to get that coolest suit, but not necessarily, you know, making me feel rewarded and progressing while I play, or, you know, giving me more content in terms of powers and, you know, extra mechanics. Now, the main game I think is excellent, and I can't wait to see what they do for Spider-Man 2 if that is coming out eventually. I would also like to see other Superman games, like maybe even, you know, an Iron Man game, or maybe even more of a comic booky kind of style game like Spider-Man Into the Verse. That would be really cool. Anyways, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you again very soon.